What is even happening right now? Like, is this not just one of the craziest off seasons that we've seen, at least in recent memory? In a stunning turn of events, Carlos Correa's deal with the San Francisco Giants is completely out the window, and now he's headed to be a part of Steve Cohen's Diamond Dynasty bullshit with the New York Mets. So let's get into it. This is Smarter Baseball, where we deep dive into everything going on throughout Major League Baseball. If you want to support the channel and be a part of what we're building here, like the video, subscribe to the page, and turn on notifications so that you can help the channel grow. We are headed to 500 subscribers, and I want you to be a part of the foundation of this channel and to be able to say that you were here from day one. So Correa had agreed to a 13-year, $350 million deal with the San Francisco Giants, and there was supposed to be a press conference last night to announce this signing, but it came out that the Giants had concerns that came up throughout the physical, and before we knew it, this deal was done, and in the middle of the night, the Mets swooped in and signed him to a 12-year, $315 million deal. That comes out to $26.3 million AAV and is going to run from 2023 through 2034, from his age 28 through his age 39 seasons. Fucking Steve Cohen strikes again. This dude is just playing a completely different game than everybody else, throwing monopoly money out here at everybody. So the Mets are adding a guy who has a career 279, 357, 479 slash line for a 836 OPS, good for a 129 OPS plus and 130 WRC plus. He's built up 39.5 baseball reference WAR and 31.3 F WAR in 8 years in the major leagues, being the 2015 Rookie of the Year and a 2-time All-Star on a team that's already loaded, but we'll get into all of this more in a second. Now, the reason why Correa wasn't signed to a big deal like this last offseason and had to take his relative prove-it deal with the Twins this last year was because he's played in 636 of 870 games between 2017 and 2022. That's 73.1% of games. In 2021, he played in 148 games, and there were still those concerns with injuries, which is kind of odd then that he gets this deal after a quote-unquote relatively healthy season where he played in 136 games last year. Now, I broke down Correa very in-depth as a player in my breakdown video about him going to the Giants. If you want to get the full picture, go check that out. I'll put it in the description or something like that so you can go to it, but I'll give you the brief snapshot here. This dude offensively is one of the better hitting shortstops in baseball, if not the best. He's got a career 130 WRC plus. Last year it was a 140, which was the highest of all qualified shortstops. He's a pretty good, if not great, power hitter that barrels the ball a lot and hits a above average amount of line drives. To go along with this, he's a very patient hitter at the plate. He doesn't chase or whiff a ton, which gets him quite a bit of walks to go along with not striking out a ton. So he's really maximizing what he can do at the plate because he's not up there taking what the pitcher's giving him. He's looking for what he can do damage on, and he does damage with it. He's always been a pretty good power hitter, probably elite for a shortstop, but we saw the numbers take a little bit of a dip on field this season, despite the fact that a lot of the advanced numbers were still relatively the same, and that's mainly just because of where he played. If he was almost anywhere else but Minnesota, 5 other ballparks in fact, his home run and power numbers would have been noticeably higher. So Minnesota just didn't do him a whole lot of favors in that sense. And we even saw this despite the fact that he kind of changed his approach a little bit, going mainly from hitting ground balls and line drives back up the middle and the other way to pulling the ball a lot more in the air, where you would expect to see a lot higher power numbers. So he's expected to bring a top tier offensive game to the Mets. Especially, I think those power numbers are going to play out a little bit better for him there in New York than they did in Minnesota. But The problem is that the Mets have a guy named Francisco Lindor already playing shortstop, so it's expected that Correa is going to move over to third, which might actually benefit him defensively pretty well. His Fangraphs advanced fielding numbers this last year of 22 qualified shortstops had his defensive runs saved and UZR per 150 right about in the middle, but his outs above average, runs above average, and total defensive rankings were 19th, so not great. Third base is probably going to fit him a little bit better because his sprint speed was in the 45th percentile and his outs above average was in the 18th percentile according to Baseball Savant, so he's not going to be expected to cover as much ground and make as many plays over at third base, and he gets to highlight his 72nd percentile arm rating. Now for the Mets, this move actually fills one of their bigger needs this offseason. Their third baseman in 2022 slashed 234, 289, 419 for a 708 OPS, 102 WRC+, and their 2.1 Fangraphs WAR ranked 22nd. Defensively, their defensive run saved was 29th, their UZR per 150 was 17th, their outs above average and runs above average were 26th, and defensively they are ranked 25th according to Fangraphs. So there's that room for improvement, mainly defensively, but we know Correa is going to be an offensive upgrade over this as well. So you can see both sides of this signing. You can see why the Mets would do this for sure. Correa is a huge offensive piece that slides over to a position where he probably fits better and fills a big need for the Mets. On the flip side, he's had these injury problems throughout his career, and this amount of money to a guy with injury history is a pretty big risk, especially the later that you get into this contract. But now this brings up the conversation again of competitive balance throughout Major League Baseball, especially when it comes to these big contracts and payroll discrepancy. So let's get into this. Let's talk money. So now you add Correa into the Mets list of starters Justin Verlander, Kodai Senga, and Jose Quintana, outfielder Brandon Nimmo, relievers Edwin Diaz, Adam Ottavino, and David Robertson, and catcher Omar Narvaez. All free agent acquisitions they've added just this offseason for a total of $806.1 million committed. Just this offseason for one team. As it sits right now, and yes, this will change, there's still free agency going on, the Mets' estimated payroll sits at $384 million. If that's the case, they would owe $111 million in luxury tax payments alone. That number is higher than the league average payroll at this moment. There are only 13 teams, yes, 13 in Major League Baseball that have more money committed to their 2023 payroll than the Mets would pay in luxury tax. How the fuck? Their total estimated expenses for this upcoming season of $495 million is at least $150 million more than any team has spent throughout league history. Now, this does not guarantee a World Series. We have seen this before. Just having the highest payroll does not mean you're going to win at all. It doesn't guarantee wins. It still means you have to play the games on the field. But can we not ignore the fact that having way more money than everybody else gives you an unfair advantage because you can pay the better players more than anybody else? Like, how are some of these teams expected to compete when they're spending less? And yes, in a lot of these cases, it is their choice. I'm not going to ignore that fact. But the Mets are paying Max Scherzer this year. More than 6 teams are paying their entire payroll. How are they expected to compete? They know they can't spend that kind of money on a guy like Scherzer, so they're not even going to try to bother. And when you know that you're not going to be able to pay for a team that can compete with somebody like this, no wonder they don't spend money on their payroll. and then not have people show up because they can't compete with them and they're gonna lose money. So once again, we're back to the two sides of the coin. Like, yes, is it cool to see a team like the Mets just go for it and have an owner that's willing to spend $1 billion to get a World Series, to put together a team that has Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, Brandon Nimmo, if you want to put him in there, Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Carlos Correa now. It's Diamond Dynasty in real life, and it's kind of cool to see and to watch how it's going to play out. But on the flip side then, now you have these super teams that the small markets know they can't compete with. So we're going to have the Mets on one side and the Oakland A's on the other. Sorry, Oakland. But this opens up the debate again for, should MLB finally put in a full salary cap? Say, nope, this is how much you can spend on players. And it's gonna grow over the years. There's still gonna be that competitive imbalance because teams aren't gonna want to spend the whole salary cap, but it makes it a little bit more like the NFL, the NBA, where you do see a little bit more competitive balance and you don't see these drastic differences outside of the teams that just don't want to spend money of like, how the hell are people supposed to compete with these teams like the Mets and the Dodgers and whoever else you want to put in there that can just spend all of this money on all these guys? So comment down below. What do you think about this deal? What do you think about how the Mets have built this team? And should there be a salary cap in baseball? This turned into way more of a rant video than I thought it was going to be. So if you've made it this far, congratulations. Crack yourself a beer, kick your feet up, and have an evening to yourself because you deserve it. If you didn't enjoy it and you're still listening, go see a therapist. I hope you did enjoy it, and if you did and want to support the channel, like the video, subscribe to the page, and turn on notifications to help the channel grow. We are headed to 500 subscribers, and that's only the beginning. I want you to be a day oneer, to be here for the foundation of this channel as we blow this thing up. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Have an awesome day. I'll see you in the next one.